hit him on the shoulder, led into his neck. But, it was one of those, we just got to talk to him about, hey, continue to lower your target. I think the biggest coaching point we find, too, is to keep your head up. AP had a great hit on the sideline, came up front of him up, had his head up, where DJ dropped his head a little bit. And sometimes that's what can get you in trouble, and for safety reasons.
Do you feel the officials have been pretty consistent with those calls throughout the season?
I think so. Like I mentioned last week, we've had visits with them in OTAs and training camp, and how they explain it to us, how they would call. I think it's been pretty consistent, what we've seen anyway.
Gus, I'm not sure you've been asked about Dalvin Cook, but how do you prepare for a guy like that?
It's tough. It's hard to mirror him. I mean, he's one of the best in the league, so it's not like you can say, hey, they have the service teams, running back mirror exactly how he is. Although we're getting good looks from that. He's just, a very explosive, very explosive. A guy like DJ knows, and knows him real well. So I think we got great respect for him. Each day you try to look at running styles and how he operates, the moves he makes, and the cuts that he makes. Is he a jump cutter? Will he try to avoid? Will he run away? Will he try to run through you? And you try to give an image of who he is off of tape the best you can, and then try to mirror him in practice.
Is he similar at all to Melvin Moore and Austin Eckler?
Yeah, I don't try to compare. He's extremely talented now. And for what they're doing outside, I think he'd be good in any system. But for what they're asking him to do, there's a lot of trust. I remember when I was at Seattle with Coach Cable, they ran the outside zone, and it was always, run through darkness, trust, just run through darkness. Make that cut and go, make the cut and go. And I'm watching him and going, now I see what you were talking about, Coach Cable, because he does that. He does that. Backers and things like that, but also to see the corners tackle as well. So, his ability to cover, put him to a spot. He's worked hard all year, so it's kind of cool to see that he went in and played very well.
Guys, can you talk? Go ahead. Coach Lynn said that Drew Tranquil had probably his best game of the season on Sunday. Can you talk about the way he's grown? Beginning of the season, he was only expected for. Now he's kind of grown.
I think for him, he's been very intriguing. We've kind of had our eye on him as he's gone through OTAs and in the training camp. We felt like he's playing more like a veteran player. The way he picks things up, the way he understands the defense, the concepts, some of the things we're asking players to do, it seemed like it didn't take him as long to pick it up. So we felt like the bar was pretty high on him. When he gives us the versatility, he can go in and play Mike, he can play dime, he can play Will. So he's a guy that anytime we need a break or someone goes down, he can flip over there, and we really don't lose much. So his instincts are pretty well. He really set the tone. I think the first play of the game kind of ran through a gap and made a play. So it's good to see his aggressiveness.
When guys switch from safety to linebacker and make that transition, what do you think it is about them that helps them when they become linebackers?
Right. Well, I think for us, some of the things that we asked them to do, that was kind of the Kaiser White example too. A safety that can play linebacker. That type of speed, that type of instincts, initial quickness. So that's the kind of guys that we target somewhat in the draft. And Drew Tranquil fell into that. So I think his, to play the run, to get an aggressive guy that can tackle it in the box and get out blocks. But then when it comes to the pass concepts, where so much the league has gotten to understand that, I think that back end experience helped him.
Because with Justin Jones a year ago, it's kind of a quiet rookie year, but he really improved this year, the second year. Can you use that story for Jerry Tiller, a guy's kind of a little quiet, but Cormier flourish in the next
right.
year?
I think that I mentioned it last week about Jerry Tiller, to get an off season with him and a training camp. But you did. Justin Jones came into me right before training camp, or I think it was during OTAs, and was talking about this is what kind of took place for him at North Carolina State. He started off kind of getting a feel for things and how things operate, and then the next year his leadership really jumped up, and holding other players accountable, that type of personality. And he said, Gus, that's really my personality. I see that developing more this year, and it has. And so I don't know if it's kind of a routine for him, but he really has jumped up. He's a very prideful player. Wants to play very aggressively, attack offenses, attack offensive lines. So that type of mentality is good for him. So yeah, we think he's playing pretty well for us right now.
Gus, you mentioned that the Vikings are going to use a lot of that play action outside. Is Is that a reason why Denzel Perryman is going to start this week over Drew Tranquil, or was he just going to start regardless?
Yeah, he came back and now he's our starter. So I would imagine you'll see, both him and Drew playing. And we need to keep those guys fresh. This will be a challenging, put the big boy pads on type game for us.
When you talk about the guys transitioning from safety to linebacker to combat the pass schemes, what's your concern about the running game? Does that impact the running game at all?
It does, because you don't want a 205-pound safety. We went through that last year, right? And AP did a good job for us. But, you're taking on big offensive linemen and, to be able to get off the block and the strength to punch and get off them. So when I say that, a safety, I mean, if they're 225, 230 pounds, that can really run, that have that instinct, that type of mold is probably ideal for us. Rather than a 260 inside linebacker that takes on the fullback, and they're good in a lot of systems, and can be a lot of good players. But for our system, more of that highly skilled safety that can play linebacker, and that's for JB. I think for him, he is a very instinctive player, and his size. That's what we keep talking about, his size. So when he plays in the box, that he can operate in there.
Gus, Shaquem was named the team's Welterweight Man of the Year nominee today. What can you just say about that honor, and just what has impressed you over his 2 years in this season?
Who was that?
Chen.
Oh, you talk about Jerry Tillery being quiet. That's kind of Chen's personality. Really just comes to work every day and puts in a hard day's work. You always know what you're going to get from him. Guy plays multiple positions for us, so on the field, fantastic. But just his mentality, that is a mentality to want to give back. I go back to Thomas Davis. I think a guy like Thomas Davis is really good for our team because they can look to him and say, well, that's what it looks like. That's a guy that plays well on the field, does a lot in his community, gives back, and well-rounded. And I think he provides an image of what it looks like, and he's the same way. I mean, he's a phenomenal person, so couldn't be happier for him.
Derwin's been back for 2 games. What have you kind of seen from him in those 2 games?
Well, I think he's exceeded our expectations as far as the amount that we played him. Like the first game, we didn't know how many we were going to give him, and he came in and played relatively, or for the most part, the whole game. So I think we do some different things. We've always tried to utilize skill set of players. Last week we brought him on some pressures more just because he can affect the quarterback when he does come. He made a big play, a batted down ball. So his ability to be versatile. We had him as a linebacker, we had him as a safety, we had him as a dime position. So we can move him around and try to utilize his skill set. So, and I think just as an overall unit, when he's on the field, it gives really good confidence to the unit.
Has it been hard to kind of slow him down and be like, hey, relax?
Yeah, but you'd rather have to say that to him, in some of our concepts, he's so explosive and fast. Some of the things that maybe were issues, get taken away quicker when he's on the field.
Do you feel like him and Adrian have brought kind of like a different, now that they're back, have changed the defense a little bit?